Assassin's Creed Odyssey may have been the best Assassin's Creed game of all time. So how could Valhalla possibly top it? Well, since the game will be available on next-gen consoles, it could take advantage of all that new and improved tech to deliver an AC experience like no other. Valhalla is going to have a bigger world, smoother combat, and it'll even bring back some aspects of the earlier Assassin's Creed games. So there is plenty of reasons to believe it'll significantly improve on the success of Odyssey. Let's get into it. One of the most amazing things in Assassin's Creed Odyssey are the missions where you encounter Greek gods and monsters. Without a doubt, those were some of the best and most memorable missions in the entire game. Sure, as PowerPix shows us, they may not be realistic since we doubt Medusa and Minotaurs actually existed, but hey, it's a video game! Okay, it doesn't always have to be realistic. I'd love to see similar missions in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but with the Norse gods instead of Greek ones, of course. I mean, this isn't God of War, am I right? There are plenty of incredible Norse gods that could be featured in the game, like our MCU favorites, Thor, Odin, and Loki, and others like Hel, Aegir, Skadi, and Ran. Now, I don't expect Chris Hemsworth or Tom Hiddleston to appear in the game, but Ubisoft should definitely see if they're available. As for creatures, maybe we could get some trolls, elves, dwarves, and hopefully some Valkyries. Whatever the case may be, Ubisoft could definitely have fun with Norse gods and creatures in the game since it doesn't even have to be remotely realistic. While realism is great for immersion, the whole game doesn't need to be true to life. I want to fight Odin at least once. Now, whether or not this is a good thing is up for debate, but it looks like the map of Valhalla is somehow going to be even bigger than Odyssey's. When you finish Odyssey's tutorial and open up the map for the first time, it's incredibly overwhelming to say the least. It turns out, Greece is a really big place. Who'da thunk it? Anyway, let's just say that the map is absolutely massive, and it's been confirmed by producer Julien Laferrière that Valhalla's will be even bigger. So we may be looking at a 120-hour-long game, which is amazing. But how amazing those 120 hours will be depends on a lot of things. For starters, what'll they do with this big map? A lot of gamers felt like Odyssey's map was big just for the sake of being big. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad, but I feel like this complaint about the game is pretty valid. If Valhalla could use all that extra space better than Odyssey, it could very well end up being the best Assassin's Creed game of all time. So yeah, I sure hope they use the space better in Valhalla, and I have a few ideas on how to make the game as lively as possible. For starters, we need more hustle and bustle in the major cities. A lot of times, NPCs are just walking around minding their own business. There are very rarely huge groups of people for you to blend in with. That's something we saw much more of in the earlier Assassin's Creed games. If cities could feel like legit metropolises, then it would be such a huge win for Valhalla and gaming in general. It's important to keep in mind that these games are coming out on next-gen consoles. With all the tech in these machines, we should see some massive improvements, and this could be one of them. On top of that, I also found the wilderness in Odyssey can get a little boring sometimes. Sure, the world is beautiful to look at, but in terms of the wildlife, it's not very busy. Now, of course, you may come across a pack of wolves or a bear every once in a while, but I just need a little bit more of nature interacting with nature. Hopefully they could take a page out of Rockstar's book and look at what they did in Red Dead Redemption 2, because the details in that game were incredible. While I think the narrative in Odyssey is a revenge story of epic proportions, it often tries to be a little too epic. Now, it's a video game, so of course it's gonna try to make your character feel like the most important one in the story. But Ubisoft made Cassandra and Alexios feel like the most important person in the entire world. It's not a bad thing, since it really made all of your decisions feel super important, but it could just be a bit much at times. You meet all these legendary philosophers and heroes throughout your journey, and it's dope, but it could often take away from the main story of the game. Hopefully in Valhalla, they make sure the main story is more focused. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the combat system in Odyssey is one of the best I have ever seen in any RPG, but like everything, it could be even better. There were only a few overpowered moves in the game, like the Sparta kick and the move where you throw a projectile to insta-kill an enemy and teleport to it, but certain builds, especially the warrior crit build, were a bit too powerful. I'd like to see a bit more balance in Valhalla, and hopefully less OP moves and builds. Another issue with the combat system of Odyssey are the assassinations. How come higher level enemies can't get assassinated? If you were a good enough player to get in a position where you could land a sneak attack, it should auto-kill every enemy, not just those around your level. In the early games, you could one-shot pretty much everyone with an assassination. It's also confirmed that Valhalla will have smoother animations and parkour, which is something I've been dying to see more of. One of the most awesome things about Assassin's Creed has to be the settings. Each game is set in a historical period that doesn't usually get much love in the video game world. As you know, Odyssey takes place in ancient Greece, and many of the towns you can visit actually exist in real life. If Valhalla could be as historically accurate as Odyssey, then boy oh boy are we gonna be in for a treat. While Valhalla is going to focus on a group of Vikings, it's not set all the way back in 900 BC in Norway. It's set in England during the Dark Ages, with Norway supposedly being a playable area as well. Ubisoft creative director Ashraf Ismail said that the focus is on 4 major kingdoms of England during this time period: Wessex, Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia. There are 3 big cities within these kingdoms: London, Winchester, and Jorvik, which is known as York today. There are also plenty of other small towns as well, but I can't wait to see what old London looks like on a PS5 or Xbox Series X. Levelgating is one of the few big negatives about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. One of the big RPG elements as old as time itself are levels. The higher your level, the more skills you could use, the more health you have, and the more damage you could deal. Levelgating is when you can pretty much only do things inside your level range. So for example, if you're level 5, good luck trying to complete a level 7 quest. Even though those enemies are only 2 levels higher than you, they could still take you down in just a few hits, which means you have to do other quests until you get to level 7, and only then can you complete the quest. It doesn't happen often in Odyssey, but when it does, it's frustrating. Even entire areas are closed off if you're not at a high enough level, so it could be a bit much at times. Hopefully, Valhalla copies the Skyrim way of doing things and makes all quests scale to your specific level so you could go anywhere in the world at any time to do any quest. That's the way a true open world should be. The cultist system was one of the best features of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Just a few hours into that game, you get introduced to the cult of Cosmos, who seem to have their hands in pretty much everything that happens in ancient Greece. They manipulate those around them to get what they want, so they're immediately singled out as the bad guys. Luckily, this is an Assassin's Creed game, so you could defeat all of the 44 cultists in the game. Over time, you learn the identity of these cultists and take them down. Sometimes they even turn out to be allies who you've been working alongside this whole time. We would love to see this same system return in Valhalla, even if they don't necessarily center around cultists. It could be a secret order of knights or something of that nature. Maybe they could reduce the amount of cultists, but make it harder to figure out their whereabouts in the huge world. That could make things very rewarding for us players. While I personally enjoy the stories of the Assassin's Creed games, some people might say that they're lacking in supporting characters and that the main character doesn't really build relationships with those around him or her. Luckily, I have a very good solution for this. A home base. Yup, literally just a place for Ivor and his Viking friends to chill out when they're not doing Viking things. Think of it like the Villa Auditore from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, the homestead from Assassin's Creed 3, or even the camp in Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2. Think about it. Forming strong relationships means you may actually care about those characters. So if something were to happen to one of them, you wouldn't just go, meh, I didn't really care about them anyway. A captivating story is one where every character seems to have a purpose, and if Valhalla can improve the storytelling where Odyssey fell short, that'd be amazing. I also believe it's important that Ubisoft doesn't forget about what Assassin's Creed really is. The games have been around for 13 years, so they can't just throw all that work in the trash. At the end of the day, as amazing as these historical settings are, it's a battle between the Assassins and the Templars. But it just seems like Origins and Odyssey have tried to distance themselves from all that. You only use the Animus in Odyssey to set up your character, which is great, but it left me wanting more. Yes, the lore of Assassin's Creed is very confusing, but I honestly wouldn't mind some side quests here and there that involve getting out of the Animus and doing stuff in the modern world. Of course, this doesn't need to be the focus of the story, but having the events in Valhalla trigger something outside the Animus like old times would be pretty neat, and something I'd love to see in the game. And that is why I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla can surpass Odyssey. Do you think Valhalla will be a better game? What do you hope it has that Odyssey didn't? Let me know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more gaming videos. Thanks for watching.